Today we'll be talking about one of the few budget LPVOs that I think actually makes for a decent sight. This is the SIG TANGO-MSR. This particular TANGO-MSR comes with a BDC6 reticle, and it comes with a 1.535 inch cantilever mount and these really nice lay flat scope caps. It's a first focal plane 1:6, which basically means that at 6 magnification, the reticle is the same size as it is at 1 magnification. I personally prefer this over second focal plane. It gives me something to reference where my center dot is with the horseshoe, and it's the same size no matter what magnification it's at. So if I want to shoot at, say for example, if I want to shoot at 600 yards with it in 1x, I can still use the reticle the same way I would if it was zoomed in at 6x. I mean, although that defeats the purpose of having the 6x, but it does allow you to kind of go without worrying about changing the magnification. Today, I have it on 2x because I was running up close, and before when I was shooting at 600 yards, I had it on 6x. Zeroing the sight was really easy. The clicks weren't the easiest to feel, but I definitely could hear them really well. Every click had a nice sound to it. It was just harder to feel through the gloves that I was wearing at the time. And so I'm not sure that if I should really even say that, but they weren't the easiest to feel through my gloves. A big part of the LPVO's function is the fact that it can be illuminated. Most of the ones around this price range, they either don't do very well in low light or they don't do very well when it's too bright outside. This one actually surprised me when it did well in both settings. Nighttime, it wasn't too bright, and during the daytime, it stood out the perfect amount to not be washed out by the sun. And so personally, I think the brightness on this is very nice, as opposed to some other options like the Strike-Eagle Gen 2. The only negatives I've found to this sight is that the glass is, of course, I mean, it's a budget sight. The glass isn't as good as the more expensive options. Past 200 and 300 yards, it does start to get a tiny bit blurry. It's not the best glass I've ever looked through at 300, 400, 500, 600 yards. But it is good enough that you can engage a silhouette, a man-sized silhouette, out to 600 yards. Another thing about this is the fact that the reticle tends to be a little bit thick. It doesn't allow for much precision. Anything past 200 to 300 yards, it doesn't allow for very precise shots. As far as the glass and the reticle, the things I've heard about it tend to be worse than it actually is. The glass and the reticle are by far the most critiqued part of this entire sight, which I think that's the most important thing. So yeah, I agree they should be, but people tend to overstate the drawbacks of having this specific sight a little bit too much. I was hearing people say that at 300 and 400 yards, they were having to look up from the sight and find out where the target is and where they were placing the sight on it, and then come back to the sight and make the shot. I never had to do that. On a man-sized silhouette, I never had to do that once. Even out to 600 yards, you could still see the reticle over the silhouette's shape. You know, it wasn't like too big and covering it up. It is quite big, but it's not that big, and the glass isn't so bad that you can't see, that you can't put shots out there. People love to say it as if you wouldn't be able to make shots at 600 yards, and I believe with this sight you can make shots at 600 yards, maybe even 700 if you are good enough and use the right ammo. I do like the illumination in the horseshoe a lot at short ranges because it allows me to track where the center dot is on the target, while me being able to focus on the actual target instead of trying to focus so hard on placing the reticle on the right place. I just use the horseshoe to kind of in my peripheral to tell me where the dot is, and I can break the shot. I think that's very good at close ranges, but if you don't like that, like some people say that, oh, entirely necessary. If you got a 1 to 6, you need to have a red dot on the top. I don't truthfully, I don't believe that you need one, but you can research your options to put a RMR on here, or put a canted iron sight or a canted RMR onto the gun if you want quicker target acquisition at shorter ranges. But I do believe this sight is good enough to be used in short range as well as long range. I have it at 2 times right now, shooting at 25, 35, and 10 yards. And so I don't think it's a problem at all to have a 1 to 6 with no canted sight or no top mounted sight on it. It works perfectly well in short ranges. Sure, you do have to deal with a little bit of an eye relief. It is a 1 to 6, so the eye relief is not nearly as bad as it is on like a 1 to 10 or a 1 to 8. I believe that with enough training and with you dry firing and things like that, you can negate the issue of having an eye relief. But with the 1 to 6, it's not nearly as bad as people kind of play it out to be. You are slower, but by little tiny bits. You know, every little bit of time counts, but at the same time, it's not exactly necessary that you have a top mounted RMR on this sight. If you're considering a LPVO, if you're thinking about getting one and you don't want to spend $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 on a sight, I believe this is a good starter point. It's a good budget option for anybody looking to get into LPVOs and get used to using them. There are other options like the 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿PV Gen 2, and I'll be testing one of those on the channel also, so that I can get some data on between the two and do a detailed description, detailed comparison between the SIG TANGO-MSR and the 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿PV Gen 2. I can't speak much for the durability side. I don't think what I put it through is enough to say, oh, it's a tough sight, it's so strong or whatever. I don't think that I truthfully will put it through enough to figure out how durable it is. But if you're worried about durability, SIG Sauer covers all of their electronic sights under unlimited warranty. So if you want to try it out and it craps out on you, you can get a new one and sell it off to somebody, you know, whatever you want to do. But you do have an unlimited warranty, and so far it hasn't crapped out on me and it hasn't broken. So that's all I can say as far as the durability goes. Hopefully for anybody who's been considering buying a SIG TANGO-MSR, I hope this video helps you make your decision. Maybe give you a little bit more information on what you should look for when you get this sight, or if you get this sight. Other than that though, I have nothing else to say. That'll be all for this video. See you in the next one.
We'll be back.
I made a makeup shot on accident.